All right, if there's people joining, we'll just hang on just for a minute till 1 o'clock and then we'll get started. Thanks. All right, we'll just go ahead and jump right in. My name is Ben Shelton. I work with the North Carolina Center for Geographic Information Analysis. I am the moderator for this first session of the second day of the conference. I'd like to thank everybody for coming out. Just a quick note that the chat, I'm sure you've heard this all before, that the chat in the window is where you can ask questions. So be sure to ask your questions there, and at the end of the session, we will go ahead and answer those questions for you. So this session is entitled The Mission Critical Asset Management Using GIS to Manage Statewide Real Property Inventory. And our two speakers today are John Cox with the North Carolina State Properties Office and Benton Yetman with Cartegraph. So I'll just turn it over to them. And if anyone has any questions, feel free to use the chat. Thanks.
Thank you, Ben. So like Ben said, my name is John Cox. I'm the Facilities Information Section Manager for the North Carolina State Property Office. And so we provide professional real estate services to all state agencies. So we buy, sell, lease property. And as part of that, we keep an inventory of all land and buildings, whether leased or owned. And back in 2016, a new piece of legislation was passed called Senate Bill 747, which gave us some new responsibilities, some new data sets to track. And this led to an independent study by CBRE, a real estate company. And they looked at how we manage the state's real estate portfolio. So we took this information and issued an RFP and was awarded to Patrick Engineering in November of 2019. And they presented the InVision software solution to us to help us fulfill this legislation and the new requirements. And basically these requirements are to actively manage the state's real estate portfolio and to measure the utilization of the portfolio, to monitor the performance, and ensure the accuracy of inventory, and to develop a surplus property identification and disposal system. And I'll go ahead and turn it over to Ben to let him give you a little demo of the software.
Great, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ben Yetman. I've spent most of my career in GIS and I'm currently a product manager at Cartegraph. I've had the pleasure of working with John and his team for a number of years now, and happy to step you through the result of the background that John just described. So we'll turn our focus to the solution. What do we do to solve the challenges and the mandates set out by Senate Bill 747? What you'll see today is we have a number of really GIS-based applications that let John and his staff, agents, and department stakeholders visualize that entire statewide real property asset inventory. They can see the big picture view, they can filter it and focus it to answer certain questions. They can drill down into individual records to see details and history and related stuff. It supports the analysis of utilization, as well as annual and on-demand reporting. So one of the challenges of any information system is keeping it up to date and also letting people get information out when they need it. That was one of the primary focuses behind 747. And of course, being GIS based, the onus really was on leveraging as much of the existing rich geospatial data from the state as possible. So one map integration was a no-brainer. Before we jump into demos, just a couple super high level concepts. The first is, this is a massive inventory. If we look at just a handful of numbers here, we're talking about nearly 15,000 owned buildings spread across the state. almost 3,000 state-owned complexes, which are essentially collections of many different land, structure, and building assets. And if we look just across owned building assets, 137 million square feet managed. So this is a huge statewide real property inventory. And anytime you're dealing with something that big and with so many different people trying to manage it, there were a couple key concepts that we focused on when coming up with the solution with John and his team. The first was it's got to be visual. And this is probably something that we take for granted as GIS folks. We're used to this, but doesn't mean all end users were or are. But if you're truly going to be able to understand, analyze, and drill down into all these different assets, you need to be able to see them visually to understand the relationships, the spatial proximity. And let's face it, nobody likes staring at a spreadsheet all day, so it should be visually appealing. Second big concept was it's not enough just to show the location or the shape of an asset. You need to show the details and the related things that are important in managing. So if we look here at the state capitol building, we can see a bunch of attribute information about the actual building asset itself, but we can also see history of renovations. We can see the related space records, all the historical cost and insurance valuation. We can see documents. Being able to see all that related business data, in many cases from other systems, is hugely important in understanding and managing these assets. We also know that we have questions we're asking today, but we're going to have different and new questions into the future. So we need to make it very easy for ad hoc analysis, being able to ask complex questions while keeping the interface as simple as possible. So flexible analysis was a real focus here, just trying to find the right blend of comprehensiveness without giving somebody an interface that was overly complex. And the last was on-demand report generation. It used to take a lot of people, a lot of time to pull information when requests would come in order to turn around a report, either roll-up reports or specific study area reports. And one of the real goals was to allow stakeholders and the business users themselves to generate a report whenever they wanted, to be able to filter and focus that report to wherever their interest was at that point in time, and to free up some of the staff that used to have to create these reports to do more important things like keeping the data up to date and helping the state really focus on a best possible utilization across all the assets. So with that as backdrop, we'll actually look at some software in action, which is what I'm guessing most of you are interested in. So if we start here, this is kind of the home page of the real property portfolio. There are a number of apps for different users. So depending on who you are, if you're an agent or a stakeholder or a guy like John, you're probably going to see different apps here. We have a bunch of links that let you on demand run some of those very complex reports whenever you want. So if I hit one of these, I don't even have to see a map. If I just want some quick details, I can very quickly get the answers that I'm looking for. And you'll see down here, we'll come back to these in a little bit. These are what we call KPI cards. These are essentially the things that I care about as part of my job that I've defined, and that when I log in, I want to see a live view of the data that meets those criteria. So we'll start today in Property Manager, which is really the management and analysis platform. This is the big picture view. We can see all of our different property assets across the state, and we can see them at different levels. We could see complexes, which are collections of them. We can see buildings, leases, whether they're office, warehouse, or land. We can go down, see all of our land assets, structures. And for all of these, we can see a kind of a nice simplified blend of spatial context, the map, and business data, where we can see attributes. So we can quickly search any of these. We can, if we want, sort the fields or columns to see buildings relative by size. And one really important concept is we can start to filter. So if we want to ask questions of our data, we could say, if I'm interested in property assets, buildings for the Department of Transportation, and we're trying to support them in a conversation. So, I'm looking at their mission critical assets, and we have a conversation with state construction office coming up. So maybe we look at different condition assessments. We get down to a subset of these assets where I can see, out of our 15,000 buildings, there's 365 that are mission critical for DOT, and we need to maybe work on a project around updating, condition assessments, FCAs. So from narrowing that down, I can easily, if I want to report on those, I could generate a report that really just takes those buildings into account and lets me share that data out if I wanted to. I could just as easily export to Excel, because we know still a lot of project level interaction happens in good old fashioned Excel. I could share a live link with somebody if I wanted to, somebody else that has access to the system. When they see this link and open it, they'll see exactly what I'm looking at here. But we know that really to manage and truly get into the details of any of these assets, we need to be able to drill down. And so for any of these, we can actually get into the good stuff. We can drill down into the detailed view. And this is where we can start to see the spatial context. We can see different visuals that have been uploaded to represent that asset. These are big, valuable assets, and the photos help us understand those. We can see all kinds of detail, as well as related records. So, histories of renovations and number of spaces and types throughout, some of our cost details. And if we have permissions as a manager, we can update information. If we see something that needs updating, we can upload photos. We can report on just that building if we wanted to really get a summary of what the pertinent attributes are for that roll up. So we can go from the sort of 100,000 foot view, seeing all property anywhere in the state, regardless of what type it is, down to the individual detail view, see the spatial view interact here, jump over to a different building if we wanted to see what's going on there. And as we go back up, we can start to get into what's really important for the ongoing management is trying to understand the performance or utilization or the key things that you need to do your job. So if I go to leases, go and look at office warehouse leases, maybe I'm interested in size, so we'll sort by square footage. Maybe I'm more interested in strategic priority, but I can tell you what almost every lease agent or property agent out there is interested in is expiration date. So if we're trying to find efficiencies and make best use of our own buildings, if we have vacant space next to a lease that's expiring, can we potentially absorb it? So I might look at something like, show me all leases that expire in the next 180 days. This gives me a view, and I can see everything that matches that filter. Could be that for my area of interest, I only care about a particular county. So if I really only care about Wake County, I could filter that down even further. So that might represent what I really need to keep my eye on. And to support that, I can save that as a filter. So my lease is expiring in 180 days. Now, when I save that, I can either just come back to that and activate it anytime I want. I don't have to build those filters every time. Or more importantly, I can create what we call a KPI card. And that will let me, when I go back to home, then see a live view of the leases that are in my realm of the world that I care about, which are expiring in the next 100 days, that I probably want to take a look at. And anytime I need to see those, all I have to do is open that KPI card, and it's going to apply that view of the world down to my stuff, and I can easily see what those 10 are, where they are, and I can jump into the details and do my work, get on with my business. So being able to go from the big picture view statewide down to individual, and then have the system take the things that I care about and show me when I need to pay attention is one of the really key concepts of the application. There's another application that is more focused on the day-to-day work of agents. So this is really around allowing people to explore, use more GIS, bigger map view as they're exploring potential acquisitions, maybe dispositions. So if I wanted to, I could really use the map. I could, get into no details at all view. If I wanted to select something I see, I can still get into those details, everything that's been uploaded related to the asset. I can still see limited sets of related things, but I can more importantly start to interact with even more GIS data. So if I want to look at historic property districts, if I want to look at parking lots, I can really get into a lot of detail here as I'm looking at evaluating or exploring the inventory along with everything around it, parcels that we don't own, the locations of key things that we might be interested in if we were exploring different portfolio scenarios. So as an agent, these are, and for stakeholders as well, these are really important tools that bring a limited set of that data along with a whole bunch more optional GIS data for them to explore and evaluate the property over time. We'll switch gears a little bit. I'm going to take you on a quick trip up north to Philadelphia. Didn't want to mess with North Carolina data for this demo, but another way that we can evaluate the right mix of properties to support our mission, or really trying to optimize, are through what we call scenarios. These real property scenarios let us explore different combinations, dispositions, acquisitions, and then will tell us what the overall impact is to the portfolio. So if we were going to explore, in this case, a scenario around a parking lease consolidation, we filtered our properties. We found, a property that was currently not used all that much, and on further investigation, it's this garage 423. We switch over to the map view to see where it is, what it is. We can see the lease is coming due. It's underutilized currently. Not the prettiest parking garage we've ever seen. So we want to explore what could we do to potentially not renew that lease and find additional parking. So, using the map, we can really quickly find where we may have additional opportunity, consolidate. We'll look right behind, obviously demo data, but that's a pretty nice looking parking lot. So what we can do is actually say, let's model what it would look like if we were disposed of that lease. And what would happen if we were going to add that parking lot to our scenario. So if we wanted to, and we go through a couple others and we get rid of another parking lot here, this essentially lets us go for any of these types of scenarios. These are, capacity or land disposition, or in this case, consolidation. It lets us then analyze the impacts, which are around what are our cost avoidance for operating cost, what's our revenue if we dispose of a property, what are the changes in usable area or capacity if it happened to be a building. A really quick impact assessment on, is this a good idea? What if we did this? And you can also, focus that on a study area. Obviously, you don't want to do this statewide, but really focus on different geographic aggregations. So being able to run those scenarios is another really important thing. One of the interesting aspects of 747 and the solution we implemented is we want to try to track utilization at multiple levels. And we know that for owned buildings, being able to understand space utilization is actually even more challenging now than it's ever been with so many of us working from home. And one of the tools that we have deployed, and John will talk about this as kind of a future step in a little bit here, is for all those building assets we were just looking at on the sort of the financial asset side, We can also use those for space management. So for any of those buildings, if we have CAD drawings or have other data that we can bring in that defines the building interior, we can actually use this for full-blown space management. So same underlying building, but now we put our space management hat on, and whether we're a State Department or an agent helping support, we can actually use the visual power of GIS to do the same thing inside buildings. So if we wanted to look at spaces by the organizations that are currently assigned, we can do that and really quickly see, what departments are assigned to different spaces here. If we have the permissions and maybe we're an administrator for a department, we can actually update all the attributes of that space. So we can get into capacity and classification, all those things that are then going to roll up to the building level. We can get into move management. We have tools to do. If you see here, I found John's office the other day. So John, I thought I might move you to a bigger office so we can do drag and drop move assignments. And we can also actually do move scenarios here, similar to property portfolio, but where we can take large groups of people and model what would it look like if we went from transferring them from owned space to a consolidated different space or lease. So moving people and across different buildings or floors, and then evaluating, do those scenarios make sense? What people and floors, does the result end up better than we had it previously? So this kind of encapsulates that, going from the highest level, understanding the big picture roll up, all the way down to the most granular level of giving the departments and the end users the tools to actually manage this better themselves and be more successful. So with that, I want to be conscious of time, and next John's going to talk to us a little bit about some of the next steps or future, actually some of these are even current initiatives, but what else is on the vision list for the team?
Yeah, thank you, Ben. Yeah, so we're looking at producing a public-facing website, so agencies and public can query the data, collecting additional building interior footprint data, and some additional facility condition assessment data integration with the state construction office, and some additional project management features. This comes with another piece of software that they produce, which is really critical for our office. And of course, all these assets support, emergency response, business continuity, and even, of course, the biggest one, broadband initiative support. You need to track your assets and know where to put antennas at, and know where your current antennas are and who owns them and how they're being managed. But yeah, that's all I got. Appreciate y'all taking time to listen to us.
So with that, I think we'll open it up for question and answers.
All right. Great presentation, guys. I think you guys did such a good job. There's no questions in the chat as of yet. I had a little question of my own about kind of what goes on in the back end. Where is all this being stored? It seems like you're pulling data from a lot of different sources, a lot of different maybe inspections and real property offices and things like that. Is this all stored centrally, or is this all referenced in the areas of expertise, kind of?
Yeah, so it's being stored locally right now, and we're looking at connecting with additional enterprise systems right now with with the DOT and the state construction office, and we already passed information to the Department of Insurance. But most of it stored, it's all stored locally. But yeah, we definitely are looking at getting some live updates from other agencies, as it comes on board, especially with the facility condition data with the state construction office. Did I answer your question?
So as people, yeah, that was good. So as the inspectors go out and inspect facilities and things like that, they're able to go into the system and make those updates themselves, or is this kind of the information passed along to you and then you make the updates?
Yeah, so we're going to have a live connection to their system. Yeah, they're not currently going to use ideally they would use our system, but they're using their own information systems currently, and passing it through their system to ours. That's our next goal. And but yeah.
All right.
We probably should also point out this is currently hosted in the cloud. So this is Patrick Engineering hosts this. There are a couple integrations. There's a central geodatabase and a bunch of services that drive all this, and a couple other integrated GIS layers as well.
All right. Oh, we did get one question from Anna, who's asked, how much of the SPO data can and will be shared in a public view?
Most of it, except for data that's not shareable. There's a couple, like public safety comes to mind. They have asked us not to share some information, but the rest of it, and will be shared with everybody, both spatial and text data.
Yeah, I take it a lot of the personnel, where people sit, that kind of thing, has some security issues you need to consider and things like that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, it's 5 till the next session started, so we'll give people some time to get to their next sessions. But thank you both for the great presentation. Hope everybody enjoys the rest of their conference. There's lots of sessions going on the rest of the day, so check out that agenda and see what's coming up next at 1:30. Thanks, guys.
Yep. Let me also just say, you got to thank John and his team. They really are the visionaries behind all this and translating 747 into practice. So contact information here if you have any questions, follow up.
Yeah, definitely. Pretty impressive system. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.